Hi, Jackie.
Yeah, hey,
Jackie.
Jackie.
Hello, how are you?
Well, good. All right. Has everyone got the agenda? Just post it here. Yeah, I mean, I think the first quick one that I wanted to discuss is we talked about having iterations, the iterations feature flag enabled for the marketing group to start testing them. It's my understanding, though, that part of it has slipped to 13.2, meaning the report of the list of issues and the edit function. So even though it's an MVC, I'm not sure I want to recommend it to the marketing team if it's not even possible to edit the iterations. So I know that this might be landing in the next few days, even after the release, but I'm just wondering if we should just start using milestones and recommending that instead of iterations, and just when they land, then we switch. Thoughts on this?
I mean, I could go either way, but milestones are proven. We know that they work.
So the
this.
difference, I'm going to suggest the difference is that milestones are a good tool for teams. I don't know if they're a good tool for the whole company or for the whole organization. I don't know what a milestone level velocity is going to tell us. And the other thing so if we use milestones and we teach people to adopt milestones and to start to go into a time constrained workflow to reduce their work in progress, I think we should do that. I think we absolutely should get people to start using milestones. So I think we should. Yeah, but but the distinction I would make is I would not be supportive of saying we should have a milestone for all of marketing where 300 issues all show up in the same milestone, because frankly you can't filter it, you can't sort it, you can't see your team's velocity at that level. It's like the velocity of all the cars on the freeway. It doesn't tell you how fast your car.
But you can't filter by you can filter by issue boards, though, by team.
But you can't see the team. You can't see the teams burned down. You only see one view, which is everyone. And the value of iterations is that you're able to then as you go farther into the organization, each level get. What I've seen with iterations, I think iterations will help us to do this top to bottom view.
Right.
So if we're going to roll milestones, and frankly, rolling milestones is a good thing, because the cultural change and the organizational change to teach people to decompose work, to refine their work, is significant. It's a significant change, and it's something we cannot underestimate. The time it's going to take people to learn how to work differently. And milestones is a way that if they do it locally, then when we go to a more coherent way overall, when iterations are ready and we're ready to do it, then they will be farther along.
Yeah, but I think we agree that iterations is the way to go. This is just a temporary measure so that people start working on that cadence, cadence way of working, essentially. I mean, I'd still be advocate for having the marketing white ones, because ultimately that's what we're going to do with iterations. And even if we don't use the burn down chart, we can still use them for scheduling and use the issue boards in the similar way that the corporate marketing team and the growth team are using them. So to me, it would be just perhaps a temporary measure before we switch to iterations.
I guess the question there then is, if we start pushing people down the train of using, Gabe's on, good, he can answer this. If milestones are kind of a half step to iterations, and we start pushing people down the path of milestones first, and then a month later when iterations are ready, we tell them to shift gears, and while they're still learning how to do work differently, we also kind of push them into a different tool to do that. Is that going to be a big realignment? On the other hand, I know we have a time box where we have to affect some change, so. Hey Gabe, we're just talking about iterations and when we think it's going to hit and whether we should start people using milestones instead of them.
Yes, you should. I think it will. So it was supposed to be live, but the engineer used the wrong ID key for report views, so the report view doesn't work. But that should be fixed soon, and we can enable it for marketing. I think we already did enable it, but I'll follow up on that. That being said, the downsides of using iterations right now is that they're not integrated into boards yet. So if you want to have like filter a scope of board to an iteration, that won't work. So that's the only downside, really, of using iterations, being an early adopter of iterations versus starting with milestones.
What's the Gabe? What's the expectation for the integration in terms of which release will it land? This integration with issue boards, when is this expected to land?
I think that's based on feedback from y'all. Like, how important is it to have it right away versus having a better report view within the iterations? Because right now there's not a burn down chart or burn up chart in iterations. There's just a list of issues and some basic, I think, completion percentage at the top. So that's where we can go any direction at this point.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I'm guessing that we can discuss this one in terms of prioritization. We can discuss this one offline. But yeah, what I'm saying is that even if the MVC had landed for 13.1, we'd be limited in terms of using issue boards for tracking iterations.
Yeah, we might be able to fit it in 13.2. I will figure that out today. Or no, I won't today. I'm not going to commit to that. I'll figure it out on Monday or Tuesday.
Cool. Thank you.
I've already committed to enough things for today.
All right. So yeah, I mean, the reason I'm bringing this one up is because we've delayed the testing by team captains by a week at least, and I'd like to see whether we can agree to a minimum set of guidelines so that we can start working with them to test this. And I think at least milestones and issue boards is something that we should have the basics of. I feel we should have the basics of, even if it's not perfect. So I think one thing that we can do is, would you mind looking at those proposed changes on point 3 for this? We can perhaps go through this right now. We can look at the review app, and then we can do any changes live even. Essentially, the first one is about defining milestones and iterations. And I think for the iterations one, I'm going to say that, am I saying this? Oh yeah, I was already saying that we're implementing them on milestones. And then after or during the 13.2 release, we'll be using iterations properly. Yeah, I've added some notes on the backlog from the last call as well. It's not yet into much detail, but it's mostly about defining backlog as a milestone, essentially.
Oh, was this what Becky had shown? Kind of having a backlog so that you can see the milestone in your issue board? Is that similar to that?
Yeah, so let me just share something. If I can find the right issue words. Sorry. Yeah, so this is, I'm going to share my screen. This is the Tech Evangelist issue board, and they're using the current marketing-wide milestones that were defined a while ago by Danielle. They are still defined under gitlab.com. I think we should move them down, but yeah, ultimately the backlog would be there in a separate list as well. It's just that I haven't added it here. but this is essentially the view where you can see each milestone or each iteration for each week in this case. But yeah, the backlog being a milestone, then it would appear as a separate list here.
And that was where I think Becky was showing her idea of having multiple backlog milestones for different purposes, like kind of categorizing them. So that if somebody has extra work, they're able to fit into a milestone. They can take a look at either a milestone for backlog documentation or backlog, like quick wins, something like that. I did like her idea of that because I feel like I would need something of that sort, but I think you're saying just like as an overall recommendation would be backlog, having a backlog milestone to be able to pull it into the issue board.
Indeed,
Is that right?
yeah. I mean, I think that would be the baseline. I guess that could be it could be more granular. Some teams might need some extra backlogs, perhaps.
Yeah, but so you're just saying the recommendation would be one single backlog milestone. I would agree with that. And if you need to break it out more,
yeah, and we can add that. I mean, happy to add that note explicitly as well. But if you need it to be more granular, you can break it out.
One question about this looks great, by the way. The iterations link there, I just saw in the MR. Have we settled on a 1 week? Because right now we're recommending 1 week for a time box. I think, yeah, 1 week from Monday to Fridays. I know there was still some discussion about that last week about whether that would be too much, too fast for people to swallow.
yeah, this was definitely still a conversation. At this point, I don't care. If we want to make it 2 weeks, I think we should just keep it consistent. And I think that's where John was saying if we have iterations, we'll be able to have an epic or a milestone at the top level. And then within your team, you can make the decision on 2 week versus 1 week.
Actually, I was thinking it the opposite way, Jackie. You'd have an iteration at the top that would establish a cadence, and the iterations you can then filter down at the lower levels. You'll see how things are going.
Those are called milestones then? At the lower level, are they then milestones?
So I think the milestone view is a team level view, is where it really would provide some set of value, at least the way it currently works. That's at least the way I've been thinking about it as we've been doing this. I don't know. I'm just, at the end of the day, I mean, part of what I'm wrestling with is this is non-trivial. The change management that we're asking people to undergo is not a trivial thing that we're going to write a handbook page and somehow magically it's going to happen. I've been doing it with my team for the last, I don't know, 3 months of gradually moving in this direction. And, you know, it's a gradual step either each point along the way. And frankly, my concern, and that is what I shared in the earlier call, is that to go from none of this to say, let's go to 1 week iterations is, I think, high risk as far as being disruptive. And I think the reality is that I don't think it's going to make us that much more efficient. I think we're going to spend a lot of churn trying to figure that out and manage it. And so frankly, I think that the successful path is one in which we take teams and we teach them the process and we teach them how to go through, you know, whether, you know, refining what's in the backlog, refining an issue to decide whether or not it's suitable to go into a sprint, which, you know, frankly, I don't think we've, you know, that is something that we've just started trying to do here. So yeah, I like, you know, I think 2 weeks is a great starting point for us to get into it. 1 week is more, you know, I don't know. It's one that, at least from where I sit at and having talked to a couple of people and looked at it, feels like it's an awful aggressive, let's just go do this.
For any of the people that you talk to in growth marketing who's been successful doing it with 1 week sprints? That's the only question I would ask. Like, who are you, when you reference that you've been talking to people and 2 weeks seems the right answer, have you talked to anybody who's been successfully doing it in the 1 week sprints?
It's not that 1 week's not successful. It's just that there's going to be a lot of overhead insurance. So maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong on it. We should just go ahead and do it. But
No, let's just do it. We've talked about
but
this for so long.
the thing that I don't see us putting into this is a part-time effort on all of our parts, right? Part-time. No one is committed 100% to doing this work. This is extra work. This is an extra on top of what we're doing in our day jobs.
Right.
And
I mean, these are OKR though. I mean, these are part of our OKRs in the same way that
I get it, but no one's 100% dedicated to this. This is at most is a part-time effort, and it's a significant change management activity to roll out. And so I think we can go ahead and put anything into the handbook we want and hope it works. I'm looking at this from how do you take people from where they are from a change management perspective to where we want them to be, as to how do we do this in a way that's going to be lasting and successful. So if David, if you feel like we want to go to 1 week sprints, then propose it. Great. I just don't know where we're going to get the resources to effectively implement that over time. I know we have the team captains lined up, but
so
I want to go on record as saying I think it's something that each team's going to have to go on a journey to learn the process and to learn the exercise, learn the techniques.
Can I share my 2 cents?
yes, please.
I put this link in the chat. It's worth reading. It talks about iterations within the context of extreme programming, which marketing is not. But the principle of shorter iterations, they're better for teams that are adopting new things because it is a shorter window for them to have things that are ambiguous or for things that are at risk to go uncorrected or unnoticed. It does put a little bit more pressure on the team because you have like more planning cycles, but that's offset by the risk reduction and having faster feedback about the process, if that makes sense. So when I switched everyone over at my last company from doing waterfall to being agile, we just skipped everything and we went straight to XP, and we did 1 week iterations, right? And then after 6-9 months, and the team was comfortable with everything, we gave the teams the option to do a 1 week or 2 week iterations, right? So that's my experience for what it's worth.
And I think that aligns to what Growth has been doing. And John, just a reminder, Growth has someone who's fully dedicated full-time right now to project management. That's Becky. That's why I've been pulling her in. So they did start with 2 weeks and they moved to 1 week because it was an easier thing to adopt as a new process. And that's the only reason I've been echoing nonstop for the last 2 weeks that we should consider 1 week to start. It is going to be a change management no matter what, but I think that aligns to what Gabe just said about when you're new to it, you can start to learn from the ambiguity, and 1 week is maybe easier to wrap your head around than 2 weeks when you're starting out with a new process. So that's all. I still am fine with if we want to say you can do 1 week or 2 week, and whatever teams want to do they can do. But I will say that seems to have been easier for them to adopt.
Yep. So I'm okay. Go whichever way we want. It's just, let's remember, Growth has someone dedicated to doing this.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to add as well, just to throw some more data to, is that it's not only Growth, but corporate marketing has been doing this as well. And one thing to notice though is it's not like a full agile process. It's essentially defining weekly milestones and going through the backlog, signing them for a week, and then if they haven't been completed, then move them to the next week. So in that sense, it doesn't add that much of an overhead. It's mostly to ensure that we get some cadence and get some closure in the issues that we're working on. And this could be considered as well as something that we do in an incremental manner, as in we set up very, very simple project management guidelines, and then we can refine them as we go along. And the final note is, I myself am not, being quite honest, I don't feel too strongly about 1 week versus 2 weeks. I just put 1 week in there because it's those things we're using, and just to have an initial suggestion. So I'm partial either. I'm not partial either way. But yeah, perhaps to conclude this, shall we just start with 1 week and then move to then change to 2 weeks if we feel it's too aggressive?
Well, I mean, we're going to start with whatever. If we impose milestones, and I mean this, impose milestones at the top level and say everybody shall conform to these milestones, then we are imposing that cadence as well. That's fine. We just got to be prepared to pony up the change management that's going to go into it. And with growth marketing, at least they've got somebody dedicated to it. And I think what we need to make sure that Todd and his team are prepared to do is to carve out the resources it's going to take to drive the change management. This is not a part-time effort. And that's my concern right now, is that this shows up as a part-time effort at most for all of us. And it's one thing to say, here's some guidelines and we're going to steer and we're going to evolve in that direction. It's another thing to say, let's jump in and go. If we're going to jump in and go, we better have to have the resources committed to it. Becky being committed to it on that side is a reason why it works. And on my side, I'm committed to doing it because I'm managing the team and leading kind of incrementally there. And so I'm feeding it in. But you know what? It's that commitment that I don't know if, as I see it, we've put into place some of the guidelines and some of the background behind it. And even in the pivot that Gabe went through from waterfall to XP, where they went to 1 week iterations, I guarantee there was a significant investment in the change management that goes with that. It's not something that they just read it and did it. There was real work that went into it. And I think that's something we've got to make sure we call out.
Right, but I think one thing to and by the way, I agree with all of that. But I think one thing that we need to consider as well is the fact that we're not going to switch this from day 1 to day 2. Essentially, first of all, we want to get the feedback from the team captains, and then when we first defined the MVC, I'm not sure if it was 2.0, 3.0, there was an aspect of rollout which we were essentially moved out of this exercise. Is something that we should still factor in as well. And if the feedback is that is too much overhead, that there needs to be someone dedicated in each team, then we should make sure that this is widely known and this not just within each team, but yeah, on the CMO staff side of things, and also make sure that these guidelines cater for that as well. But I mean, the summary, sorry, I'm just rambling a bit. The summary is that I think we should start with something that we can present to team captains and then factor in that feedback. If they feel that we're imposing something that won't work with them, then we can just course correct if we need to.
And I think coming back to John's feedback also, like starting with the one team and moving to the next, like this is the captain piece is we're getting feedback. We're thinking about how we maybe fit into, like what we're proposing fits into their workflows. The concept of when we're going to train people, we could do a phased approach for team by team and maybe enlist help from Becky if that's something that growth marketing can support, so that she can get them started and then hand over those reins to the manager of the team so that they can continue the process but have a little bit of help to start out. Just something to think about. I don't want to raise her hand yet, but I think that I'd talk with Danielle about that if we can go that route. And that will be after the finish of the agility projects is the implementation piece.
Yeah.
One thing that I don't know who I was talking to about, but like looking at the agility project overall goals still, it says something, it's mainly focused on leadership visibility. But I remember in the first agility call, we were focused a lot on the high level leadership visibility. And I remember Todd saying, no, this is about the team working more cohesively, but it was never reflected in the overall goals and KPIs of the project. So I know it's really late. I remember flagging this like a month ago, trying to say like, what are the goals specifically? Because it can get muddied if it's not outlined. But like, is the goal is still cohesive approach for marketing, then I'd want to just call that out because it doesn't say that on the Epic. I'm pulling up the Epic. I'm taking this. Oh, actually,
I think one of the things that I remember, I think it might be still on the notes from the agility check-in. I think what Todd mentioned was that visibility was important, but not as important as to have us jump through hoops to achieve that, essentially. I think it was mostly about being effective, and I think being cohesive is a part of that. But yeah, if it's not reflected on the Epic, then we can just go ahead and update it, if we all agree.
yeah, I would say that it's relevant too. If we come to the end of this project and we look back and say, okay, let's look at everyone's KPIs or key results. The results still show use GitLab for every CMO staff meeting. Use GitLab for every marketing strategy and tactics call. Use GitLab to show e-group and other groups of marketing is doing. I know if we want to still align to this, we need to have clear definitions of how they would use it, in my mind. And I think for the high level visibility, the roadmap is what we were leaning towards as the indicator. The issues would be something more I feel like the roadmap would still be used for the marketing strategy and tactics call, because if you use weight and you use issues and they align to epics, you can quickly see the projects that are in place and the progress to finish in the roadmaps. Like the roadmaps seems like the solution to all of these questions, all of these key results. Am I alone in thinking that?
No,
No,
I think milestones, epics and milestones in the roadmap is the view.
I apologize, I have to drop, but I'm with you on that, and I'm also totally cool with merging that MR.
Excellent. So perhaps I've got 2 minutes left. Actually, I need to go to another call as well. But shall we agree to merge that MR? I mean, feel free to add any comments that you'd want to address before merging, but perhaps let's agree to review the MR, and if some of you can merge it afterwards. If once the comments have been addressed, then we can start with that. And then Jackie, would you mind having a stab at cleaning up the goals, then including that aspect of cohesiveness, or whatever the noun is called?
Sorry, repeat that last bit.
Would you mind updating the MVC's goals to reflect that aspect of becoming more effective by having cohesive set of guidelines?
Okay. Yeah, I can update that, and I'll reference the notes from the agility call where that was specifically called out by Todd, so that it doesn't look like we're just changing the key results. That definitely was what we discussed in like one of the first calls.
I think it's on the notes actually. So yeah, it should be okay.
Great. Okay.
All right.
And then other next steps, like should we be focusing? I have 2 MRs open, but I might be closing one out because I think it overlaps with your milestone and iteration MR.
Yeah, one contains a change that you had already added to the other one, and I think for the other change that I commented on, I think I would add the date to the iterations name rather than on the milestone.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean,
I'll review yours and give the thumbs up on your MR. I want to look through it one more time.
Cool.
I'm having a forced reboot. I've got to drop everyone. My computer is forced quitting.
That's fun.
All right, that's good to do on a Friday.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
let's follow up on the Slack channel then. See if we can do some of these things before the next call on Tuesday, and I'll update the OKR today on the as per Todd's suggestion on the marketing check-in.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.